To win the war in the Pacific against Japan, the United States needs to control the sea and sky as it fights the ground war island to island. On the vast ocean, nothing is more important than our powerful aircraft carriers, with their daring commanders and courageous pilots. It's June 1944. You are Rear Admiral Joseph Jocko Clark, commander of a huge carrier task force that is protecting the American land invasion of Saipan, located in the Marianas Islands of the Central Pacific. The epic battle of the Philippine Sea puts your leadership to the test as you protect the fleet and attempt to destroy the Japanese Navy. Japanese scout planes spot the American fleet as it protects our ground forces. Admiral Ozawa launches massive numbers of warplanes, starting the greatest carrier battle of World War II. It's a huge American victory dubbed the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The U.S. shoots down 375 Japanese planes, losing only 30. The next afternoon, with little over an hour before sunset, the U.S. carriers launched 200 planes to find and finish off the Japanese fleet and aircraft. It's a daring gamble that puts our pilots in extreme danger. Naval commanders don't know where the Japanese fleet is, and pilots have a limited window to find it before running out of daylight. The planes fly 300 miles, the limit of their range, when they spot the Japanese armada. They attack and sink the Japanese carrier Hail and shoot down another 65 Japanese planes. Meanwhile, back at the carrier task group, all the ships turn off their running lights per fleet protocol to avoid detection by Japanese submarines. The fleet commanders anxiously await the return of their pilots, who are dizzy with fatigue, low on fuel, and flying in pitch darkness. What would you do? Would you break carrier protocol and turn on the lights to guide the pilots home, knowing that if you don't, many of them will probably crash and die? Or would you keep the lights off to avoid possible Japanese sub-attacks that threaten the entire fleet and thousands of sailors? Here's what really happened. In a bold decision that went against protocol and put the fleet at extreme risk of submarine attack, Jocko Clark turned on the lights of his carrier, the Hornet, and pointed searchlights into the sky to act as homing beacons for the returning pilots. Clark notified his superiors of his action, and an immediate order went out to all other ships to turn on their lights. No Japanese submarines attacked the fleet that night. Some planes crashed into the sea. Others landed on the wrong carriers, yet all but 36 airmen were rescued from the sea by the evening of the next day, after the U.S. fleet recorded one of the great naval victories of the war. Jocko Clark didn't flinch as he made decisions that could determine the fates of airmen and sailors. His performance in crisis remains an example of courage and leadership.